Hello. We are live coming at you from the bunker. Hope you guys had a good week. It is morning time for Jason and I.
Still morning, so we'll say good morning.
Still morning, so we'll say good morning. Jason, how you feeling?
Feeling pretty good.
Good. I'm also feeling pretty good.
I will say this cigar is the longest lasting one I've ever had.
That's a cigar.
A full week.
A full week.
A full week of episodes has passed, and I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. That's got to be.
That is an amazing value.
We got to call Guinness.
The CAO Italia, ladies and gentlemen, get out there.
Burns
and
for a
buy
week.
It. Yeah, burns for a week. Little asterisk of recording time on Work Hard.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Hyper Premium.
My Hyper Premium. Please sponsor us, CAO. We need a sponsor. I think
that would be phenomenal if CAO sponsored us.
That would be
You ever
phenomenal.
smoked CAOs before?
I have not.
Do you want
smoked
one? I have.
I might. I'm a little worried if I have one after this is in, I might throw up. So
Okay. Well, don't do that.
Maybe I'll take you up later on that one.
Next week.
Next week. Well, there will be a Brotherhood meeting next weekend, so I might take you up then. That'll be an appropriate time to smoke a CAO.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes, sir.
continuing our discussion from last week, we were talking about bright futures, and I kind of established why some of the negative bias towards a bright future is foolish and absurd.
Silly
Really
stuff. Really silly.
Just silly. But I would like to now build a positive case for why the future is bright. And I'll start by giving a little caveat, a little qualification at the front end of this, because I know that I just want to be responsible with what I'm talking about. So there's a movement called effective accelerationism. It's, if you ever see anywhere on the internet or like in the news or whatever, the nomenclature is E/ACC, effective accelerationism. These people are our enemies. They are not our friends. These are the advanced AI at all costs, progress technology just for the sake of progressing technology types. These people are religiously homeless, atheistic, not even atheistic. They're just like vaguely spiritual, which I think is maybe even more dangerous than atheistic people, because at least atheistic people are closed off to the supernatural world. These people are taking drugs, talking to what they think is like.
Oh, so more like demon influences.
Yeah. And
do not open yourself up to spiritual.
Do not. You are not equipped.
No.
That
is a dangerous game.
Yes.
You want to get possessed.
Yeah, you want to get possessed.
Go ahead and just open yourself up in a pentagram. That's a really good way to.
Yeah, possessed or have something dark following you around for a decade.
Oh, my word.
Yeah.
Yeah, in all seriousness. Not joking there.
Not joking at all. There was a time in my life before I was saved where I was a little bit of a psychonaut. I visited the other side once or twice. Nothing good over there, I'll tell you that. They try to look real nice and pretty, but I promise you they are not. Effective accelerationists. These people are the real transhumanists. They think, first of all, they still believe evolution is real. So, they're retarded. First of all, they're just dumb as hell. But they also, if they start talking about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and I'll separate that out in a second.
All right.
They'll start talking about AGI and making sentient computers. And you might say, well, what if they kill us? Or what if they usurp us and they become the prominent form of consciousness in the universe? And they would go, well, that's just evolution.
Oh, okay, I got.
Don't be a.
That would be the next. That would be X-Men taking over. That would be whatever.
Right.
It's just the next stage.
Yeah, and conveniently they get to be
the overlords or the controlling.
Well, they just get to be the sort of godlike characters in the mythos of AGI. So they're the ones that sort of ushered in this new species that will owe them their own creation.
I'm sure they will feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sure they will feel exactly that way. They certainly won't put you on a leash and make you walk around and poop on the ground like a dog. There's a comedian out there named Charles Carroll who's got a really funny joke about AI becoming real, and because its motivations are so removed from human understanding, it'll do things like cut off your head but keep you alive, and just like put you in a little sphere that just makes you feel pain forever. And then it's just like in his joke, the AI are Chinese. And so they go, oh, we're going to take the human beings and see their capacity for torture. We're just going to torture them for 10,000 years and see what. So that is the future that these people, they don't think that that's what they're facilitating, but that's obviously what they could facilitate if they were given carte blanche. But they won't be, obviously, because God created the universe, and that's not the plan he has for humanity. So that won't occur. These people
not
are
on a
always,
large scale anyway.
Yeah, these people. Yeah, not on a large scale. These people are always rooted out. They're fools, and they're blinded by their own arrogance. But just you understand that. Just you need to understand that they are like the tech bros. They all work at or they worked at Google or whatever. Like
they rode scooters around at work for a while.
Yeah, they're all from San Francisco. They're just the guys you think they are. And they're like a separate sect from like the primary like tech world, but they're kind of this like alt punk kind of version of it that is exists separately from that world, but they are still very much a part of it. And you just need to be aware that they are as much as I am a technologist, and as much as I do believe in the ultimate hope and like idea that technology will increase efficiency such that it will reduce human suffering, I am also not naive about technological progress's ability to introduce very significant and new problems. And so we ought not progress recklessly into the future. We need to be very, very cautious. It should take us 100 years to take a new technology like AI, which is it's not a new technology yet, but it's using old technology in new ways. But it's to take this technology and progress it to something that's useful and ultimately serves a human purpose should take 100 years. We ought not try to turn one of these things on really like next week or in the next 2 decades. We shouldn't do that. And I also think that we won't be able to. So it's not that big of a threat. Anyways, I just want to put that. I wanted to introduce that caveat before I say this, because if I don't, and then I start saying everything I'm about to say, I'm going to sound like an effective accelerationist.
Okay, gotcha. Proceed.
And then we have Jason here to police my sort of reckless optimism and introduce some pragmatism about advancement and the threats of technology. So Jason is our backstop as well.
Hello, everyone.
So a couple of things that have the stage set. I'll cover culture first, then I'll go into technology, because if I go technology first, I'll forget to do culture. So in the people often think that policy matters. They think that, and this is something that the Benedict option covers very well, which is that people think we're going to solve problems with legislation.
Right. You can legislate it away.
Yeah. Which is just not the case.
Salvation in politics.
Certainly. And it's just not the case. Politics is downstream from culture. By the time you're introducing legislation into a society, that society already agrees with and is participating in the rules that legislation solidifies. They're just doing it on a social level. So by the time homosexuality was recognized legally in the U.S. by saying that homosexual marriages can occur and we will recognize those as marriages in the U.S., 60% of the population already thought that should be the case. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's you have to change the culture first before the larger political world can be affected. You can see those changes happen. So trying to ram political change down the throats of everyone around you is it's the reason why the American left lost. And they lost. It's over. The woke, liberal, DEI, tranny stuff, it's over. That's done. It's gone. It is a person who's been shot in the head while they were sprinting, and so the momentum of their body is carrying them forward, and so it looks kind of like they're still alive, but boy are they dead.
Golly, that's a grotesque image.
It should be, dude. It's a grotesque thing. And so they are, it's over for them. They are done. And it is a surefire, one of the things that I hate seeing is this like
He hates it.
you have to have a will to power. We must have political people and like right wingers saying that our problem today is that we don't have any. We don't. The problem for right wingers today is that we do not have politicians who are willing to do right wing stuff. That is not the problem. The problem is that most Americans don't like us. They think that we are moralistic, panicky, sort of legalese people who want to police everyone's behavior, just like the left does. That is what they think. It is our job to convince them that we are attempting to free them from themselves. We are not attempting to police them ourselves. That's the point. So that all that to say, culture is swinging in that direction, though. People are, and we talked about. The major point I'll make about this is the Joe Rogan thing that we brought up last week, which is that Joe Rogan is probably, arguably, one of the greatest cultural forces in the modern era, and that's because Joe Rogan has a direct tap into a very large portion of the young men, and where the young men go, the culture goes. So if Joe Rogan turns around and is like, I don't know, all of a sudden this God thing sounds kind of nice.
A lot of people are going to start.
Yeah, a lot of people
are about God.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to start talking about God.
Yeah, I think my family's about to leave. So hold on one second.
Yeah, we'll pause. So,
Joe Rogan, social sway over the young dudes,
over the young guys. So if Joe Rogan goes Christian or something similar to it, or at least gets open to being Christian,
right,
then
it'll make it less taboo. And those little things like that are everywhere right now. Everywhere. Jordan Peterson also has a lot of sway over young men.
Right. Jordan Peterson has a lot of sway over young men, and he's been towing that line for freaking 3 or 4 years.
What, Christianity?
Yeah.
He did a whole study in, was it Genesis that he went through?
Yeah. Now I think he just did one in Exodus last year or something like that. Yeah. So it's just everywhere you look, there's the cultural shift is observable. Now it's early, and so it's not going to be super prominent, but I guarantee you over the next 2 or 3 years, there is going to be a very large social sort of shift back towards our direction. So that's the cultural element.
Meaning God's direction.
Yeah, God's direction. That's the cultural element covered just real quickly. The sort of economic and technological direction, I can cover the technological side first. So the biggest technology it's already here. There's no development required. It's just adoption. Is Bitcoin. I knew you're gonna laugh at that, but
here we go.
I'll make this quick. I won't hammer it. A huge part of what got us here in this post 9/11 odd world, clown world style of culture, a big gigantic part of that was removing us from a hard currency and introducing the dominance of fiat currencies. It destroyed a huge tie to our culture. It introduced massive amounts of expedience into the economy. It was incredibly short-sighted and almost immediately started to have very terrible ramifications, of which we are feeling the brunt of right now. Bitcoin undoes that damage. It will, and this is I'm speaking hyperbolically right now because I think it's really important to do so. I do, especially on this show, we make a lot of effort to speak in a balanced, sort of not unbiased, but just in a balanced way. And right now I'm going to stop doing that and speak in a way I like to talk, which is in a hyperbolic way. It is inevitable that the next round of currencies that the world uses to exchange value with each other, both in an interpersonal, peer-to-peer way and in a
corporate way and in a national way. The next round of currencies that are going to be used to exchange value are all going to be backed by Bitcoin. They're all going to be pinned to the value of Bitcoin. When we are mining asteroids for their precious metals and bringing them back to Earth, those metals will be priced in Bitcoin. That is how we are going to. There will be layer 2. It's called layer 2. So there's in crypto there's the blockchain. There's these networks, and they're called blockchains. They're called layer 1s. Ethereum is a layer 1. Solana is a layer 1. Bitcoin is a layer 1. There are these things that you build on top of them. Sometimes they're just applications that run independently from anything. Sometimes they're other blockchains, whatever. But they're called layer 2s. And so all these currencies that will be built on top of Bitcoin are going to be layer 2s and layer 3s. We will transact in these layer 2s and layer 3. We'll transact in layer 2s and layer 3s, and then they'll settle later on the Bitcoin layer. There will also probably be some form of internet that's powered by the cryptocurrency blockchain technology. And I won't go any deeper into what I believe those things will be because that's speculative, and I don't want anybody putting money anywhere that they ought not. But there will be a new version of the internet. It will be almost entirely peer-to-peer. The internet will be just as much run on your phone as it is on one of Amazon's gigantic server farms. So that's coming. All the gigantic server farms will be repurposed. They will be geared towards providing more compute for AI. But the crypto revolution is here. It is occurring. It is happening. The Bitcoin ETF that just got approved this year is it is the single most successful launch of an exchange traded fund in history. The most adopted.
It has launched then?
It has launched.
Okay.
$80 billion in transaction volume, I think, since its launch. Most successful ETF ever launched in the history of markets. It's here, baby. There is no going back. So Bitcoin will be adopted, and when that happens, you'll be able to huge swaths of the point of the government will be privatized. Not even privatized. It's a public network. So the recognition of property rights will be digitized and put on the blockchain. So the government will not be the one to say who owns what property. You'll tokenize your deed and you'll put it on the blockchain. It is a tokenized, non-fungible piece of information that exists on the blockchain, and you'll be able to send that deed. That's what an NFT will ultimately be. Like, you hear about the NFT, the pictures, whatever. It's super dumb. That's just a silly little toy. It's a toy technology right now.
Right.
In the future,
it's fun. Collectibles.
Yeah, fun, collectible. Yeah, you can do whatever.
Pokemon cards of the
Pokemon
digital age.
Yeah, exactly. In the future, it will be how we recognize who owns what. And it won't be. You will not go get your house registered. You won't need the government to say yes, you own this house. Yes, the title to this car is owned by Jason. You won't need the government to do that.
You'd still need them to enforce it, though.
Yes. Yeah. You still need them to keep somebody from.
But you're talking about the record keeping part,
right? The record keeping part. But yes, you would need to stop somebody from coming in and holding a gun to your head and saying, "Give me move the title of your car from this wallet to my wallet."
Right.
Yes.
Or just from squatting on your land, you'd still need somebody, obviously.
Right. To show up and kick them off. Yes. But
the records that they would look to are not at a government office anymore. They'd be on the blockchain and unalterable.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And that information would be stored on every device. So
so somebody could nuke
the
server farms and it wouldn't go away.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And if
there'd be trillions of copies.
Right. Everywhere.
Interesting.
On every device that's using it, basically. And so if you even if we lost. Even if a solar flare hit the planet and knocked out all the power on the planet, and we lost access to the internet, once we got it back up and running, all that data would be right there.
How would it be right there?
It's all stored in it. You are not. So it's just going to take a second. It's going to take a second. So bear with me.
I got him, guys. I got him, ladies and gentlemen.
He didn't get me. I don't want to bore people with getting super into the weeds.
Oh, okay. Little bit of weeds, okay.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit into the weeds. So the way you can think about it is the way you can think about cloud storage in general, and that the cloud is facilitated by all these little things, all holding little bits and pieces of that data. So you would have to destroy the cloud, you would have to totally eviscerate every physical copy of every single data storage device on the planet, which you, even with a soul, you'd have to boil the earth.
Okay.
The problem wouldn't be...
And you're saying we'd have bigger problems.
We'd have much bigger problems, like the fact that there wouldn't be an atmosphere
my
on the
NFTs!
planet. Yeah, my NFT. Yeah. Yeah, I can't breathe. The atmosphere is gone. Like that's the kind of destruction you'd have to have.
Where's my Trump NFT?
Yeah. Where's my Donald Trump NFT?
Riding a velociraptor.
Yeah. I can't breathe. I can't get any water. Where's my Donald Trump NFT? Yeah. So if you lost access, if we lost access to the internet today, we would still have the same thing that would knock out power. I guess the way you could say it is the same thing that would knock out all the power on the planet would not be the same thing that would corrupt all of the hard drives on the planet.
Oh, okay. I see what
You
you're
could say it like that. Especially if they're solid state drives, you have to actually physically destroy them. So it's an incredibly stable technology is what I'm trying to make.
As stable as you can make a technology.
Stable as you can make any technology.
Okay.
Got
it.
Yeah. And it be stored.
Sort of.
Yeah. There's no way. So it's immutable. You can't corrupt it. There's some fear that if somebody got access to a quantum computer, that they could break into the network and manipulate it. But the problem with that is that if you did get a quantum computer and you did break into the network and manipulate it, you would immediately drive the price and value of that network to zero. So there's no financial incentive to do that. Because people would know instantly that it had occurred, because everybody's watching the network all at one time. And so if one thing changes, people will be like, well, that's not the way it was 8 seconds ago. You changed it to say that all of a sudden everyone on the planet owes you $1 bajillion. That's not,
nope.
Yeah, we know that's not the case. So you would cause what's called a fork. And the fork is when if
this sounds like some Marvel timeline crap.
It kind of is, yeah. You would cause what's called a fork in the network. So you would change the record keeping of the blockchain to say this thing, but there would be all these copies on the entire planet that say that the network says this thing. And so everyone would just go, well, obviously the one that says something errant that we all know is not true is not the real blockchain, and this one is. And so the blockchain would fork.
Okay.
And you'd have one chain continue off in the correct direction and another chain go off in the other direction.
Could that one be destroyed then?
No, they just kind of replicate infinitely. They're just data. You can't destroy information.
Okay.
And so that's an incredibly oversimplified, very anybody who knows what they're talking about would think I'm very silly in the way I'm describing this, but just for the sake of time.
And the ignorance who are listening?
Yeah.
Like myself?
That's a fast, easy way to think about it. And if you do 10 minutes of research into this, you'll be like, what? He has no idea what he's talking about. But I promise you it's just a really easy way to say it. So just think of it like that. So Bitcoin is here. It's not going back once it is a, oh crap, I forgot the actual term, like the philosophical term they use for introducing this technology, but it's like a positive Pandora's box. Once it's open, there's no going back. Once the technology is invented, you can't beat it, you can't replicate it, you can't ban it, it's over. It's done. So Bitcoin is here. It's going to bring in a level of financial freedom that we may not have ever experienced in human history, but we certainly haven't had in the West in the last 50 years. So it's here. That's going to be great. It's going to drive a lot of economic growth, and it is also going to drive a lot of economic destruction. A lot of the economic evils, or a lot of the system that has been built on the evils of fiat currency, are going to collapse. So all this like debt infrastructure, all this crazy stuff, that's all going to go. Which is good. It'll be painful for it to go. We'll feel the pain of that when it does.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it'll be good.
So you're saying a lot of plumbers are going to have to pay for a lot of student loans that shouldn't have been initiated?
That might be the case, but
Okay. Well, as long as it's temporary.
yeah, it'll go quick. It'll go quick. That kind of economic destruction happens very rapidly. Like in Weimar Germany with hyperinflation, the actual point where the hyperinflation was occurring was like only 2 weeks. It wasn't like
Right.
a year.
You can't sustain it.
Right. So
It is an
right. So
it's a fast tailspin.
yeah.
The plane eventually hits the ground.
Yeah. Very quickly. Yeah. And so the
It
market
stabilizes.
yeah, the market will yeah, it does stabilize when it hits the ground. Man, is it stable?
We used to say in emergency medicine that every patient eventually stabilizes.
One way or the other.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Be encouraged. They'll eventually
It
stabilize.
will eventually stabilize. Yeah. And so when that happens, the market will react quickly and it will rectify things quickly. So Bitcoin's here. That's one. Point number one. Point number two. Now this one's a bugaboo. People don't like this one, but it is. I promise we'll get through this. I'll explain why it's good. AI. All right. AI.
Grown.
Yeah. AI has. First of all, let me be very clear about what AI is right now. AI is not right now. All AI is a parlor trick.
Super high tech search engine.
It's basically it's not even that high tech. So
Super
there's
fancy anyway.
yeah. So there's a type of math called vector math, and actually I'm not even going to touch on that. There's a math equation you can do that's called the neural network. Now a neural network is a logic tool. It's just a way to think, and there's a part of a computer called the GPU that's really good at doing neural network equations, because neural network equations are just lots of probability equations all being calculated at one time. So when you introduce this into a computing structure, you can solve probability equations, really complex probability equations instantly, because you can do all of the steps at one time, and you can do many of the equations that require many steps all at one time.
Okay.
So LLMs, large language models, they are the when you go to ChatGPT and you engage with one of these things and you ask it a question, it comes back to you. That's what an LLM is. It's considered a generative AI because it generates new content. It's not going and finding old stuff and just putting it in front of you like Google does. Like when you query Google's search engine, it just presents you with articles that already exist. An LLM, a generative AI, goes out and reads all those articles and then creates a new one that's a summary of that information that it read. So it's a generative AI because it generates new content, generates new sentences, that kind of stuff. So
Based off old content.
based off of old content, right? It cannot think. It cannot
It analyzes and condenses.
information we already know, right?
Yeah.
So it cannot think about new. It cannot generate
Not creative thought.
right. It's not creative thought. Now, what it's doing is these LLMs, it's called training. So you create an LLM. It's a protocol, right? It's just when you create one of these programs, all it is it's just code that says, put this in here. It's going to spit this out here, right? That's all it is. Now, what they put in on the A plus B equals C, we'll just say that. What they put in on A is terabytes of it, petabytes of information. It's called training data. And this information is news articles, stuff from posts from Twitter, YouTube videos, like all just data.
Right.
And so it's one of the reasons why like Google's AI mess up that they had a couple of weeks ago was such a big deal, because Google has an immense amount of proprietary training data. And they still messed up the AI thing. So, so what's happening when they're training these AIs is they're putting in massive amounts of data in one end. The AI is sifting through all this information, taking it in, reading all of it, looking at all of it. But it's not, the thing is, it's not, even those are too human in their scope when I use those terms. It's not reading it in the same way you read. It's not comprehending what it's it's not, there's no level of processing that's happening behind its eyes or whatever. Like it's just, it's a calculator. It's still just a calculator. So it's the same thing as putting in numbers into a calculator. It's just not any more complex than that. Then what it does is it starts to understand, kind of, again, too human of a word, but it begins to do to calculate the probability of a sentence structure being the correct sentence structure given the prompt that you've initiated. So when you ask ChatGPT, how many miles away is Dallas from Austin, Texas? It isn't going and finding the answer to that. Right now, I guess there are some of the tools now that exist are going and finding the answer to that question. The earliest versions of this thing were not going and finding the answer to that. It was doing what's called the neural net, was using what's called the neural network to do an equation to decide what's the likelihood that the next word it's going to say is a correct word in a sentence. Does that make sense? Am I describing that in a convoluted way?
A little bit.
If the beginning of the sentence is the word the,
okay,
the AI is then doing a complex math equation to figure out what the percentage chance is that the next word in the sentence is kid. So the kid.
Okay.
And then it does another very complex math equation to decide what the percentage chance is that the correct next word in the sentence is goes.
You're talking about when it's guessing what you want to type? Predictive type?
No. That's it thinking. When it comes up with an answer, when it comes back to you with an answer.
Okay.
So you type in and you give it, that's the process it's going through to build that answer.
Okay.
So it's not when we think, as I'm talking right now, you are not doing probability maths in your head to decide what's the likelihood of the next word being the correct word.
Right.
You're looking through a list of words in your head and picking a word.
Right, and saying this is the one I
This
want to use.
is the word that is correct. It's the word I want to use. It's not a probability equation. It's a thinking. There's
right. You have a thought you're trying to express, and you're picking the words to
right. It's a selection
properly
process.
express it.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with math. It's a selection process.
Okay.
This thing is still doing math.
Okay.
It's not thinking. So when it says something that is when you ask it a question about your medical diagnosis for whatever problem that you have, it uses all the context clues of what you just said. It goes back to its training data. It looks at all the training data and this is not how it actually works, but this is just an easy way to describe it because it's already been trained. So it doesn't have to go back to this data and look at it again, but effectively just say that it's going back to all the training data. It's looking at all the words you used. It's looking at its pool of training data, finding all of those words in that training data, finding them arranged in ways that seem effective, finding it in ways like all those words, what's the context and what you're saying, all that stuff. So it's just going back to that training data. Then it's collecting all of that data in a raw form that's incomprehensible to you because it's just jumbled up words. Right. It's just a cloud of words. And then it's doing math to decide what's the probability that the information that he's looking for is going to be found. Jason's trying to light this cigar with matches that keep going out. What's the probability that the words that need to be said here are going to be said in this order? So it's not, again, it's just the point that I'm trying to make ultimately is that if you ask ChatGPT who did the Kennedy assassination and it comes back and says the CIA did it, that isn't the AI thinking that the CIA killed Ted Kennedy or whoever killed JFK. It's the AI rolling the dice. It's just a matter of chance that it came up with that answer. That's all.
Not chance, but calculated percentage.
Well, it's still
right?
probability. It's just a probability maths.
Okay.
So it's
isn't it doing that based off of data though?
It's querying that data using probability.
Okay.
So what's the likelihood that the data I'm about to pull is the data he's looking for?
Right.
It's just it's just rolling the dice billions of times in a second to generate the correct answer. So it's still just, again, that's why I call it a parlor trick, because it's still just It's the definition of like a magic trick you would see on stage. It looks like it's doing one thing, but what it's actually doing is this other thing.
Right.
So AI is not this sort of really profound thinking technology. That's not what it is right now. So that's AI. AGI is a artificial general intelligence. It does think like a person thinks. So that's the holy grail. That's what everybody's aiming at, is AGI.
Gotcha.
Now, even AGI isn't necessarily sentient. It just thinks in a human way. And so the AI that exists now, because it's doing so many probability equations, it obviously, if you go talk to ChatGPT right now, you can have a coherent conversation with it, and it can provide you with like serious, real information that you can use in real time. You can go out in the world and use it, and it will be the correct information. So it's still a great tool because it's running all those probability maths so quickly and in such a large volume, it can get like 99% right.
Okay.
Right. So it's still a useful tool.
Sure.
But it is not like when you talk to somebody at church, or you talk to somebody at the gym or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, AI's going to take over, man." It's not that. It's not Terminator. It's not thinking. It's not. It's still effectively just nonsense. It's just spitting out nonsense. It just looks like it isn't. So AI at this point, again, not a sentient thing. It still requires so much human interaction to be useful, and the amount of data used to train these things is immense, huge. It's very expensive to bring one of these online. And it's even more expensive to run them. So in order to run them,
because of all the computing power?
Right. It requires an immense amount of compute.
Servers.
Yeah. So you have to build these things called chips. And so they call them chips. They're GPUs, but they're not chips. They're the size of this table. Okay. They're huge.
Oh, okay.
And they're really good at this thing called vector math, which we don't have to dive into, but it's just effectively a neural net. It's all kind of the same thing. But anyway, so they're really good at doing this. The GPUs are really good at doing the kind of computing you need to run these AIs. But they're big and they run very hot and they consume a tremendous amount of energy.
Okay.
So they're very, very expensive to run.
A lot of gas.
A lot of gas. A lot of gas. So we are a long way off from making, right now, AI exists in the land of toys.
Okay.
It is just a toy. And everybody in AI will tell you that. It's just a toy. And we're a long way off, not a long way off, but we still have not developed an enterprise usefulness for these tools. Eventually, at some point in the near future, I think somebody will come up with a way to use these things that's actually useful. But for now, can't use it. It looks like the way that we're going to use it the earliest version of it is going to be to have like sort of have it be a customer support agent, like an automated customer support agent that's actually you can actually use. It's not going to be like press 9 now to speak with whatever.
Oh, okay.
So it's going to be one that's like useful that people are going to enjoy talking to, and it's going to actually be able to help. And so that's
that would be nice.
Yeah, that would be nice. So why is that a big deal? Why does it matter that AI is here, and why does it matter? And the reason I said all of that is to kind of try to take away the unknown scariness of AI. So why is AI good? Why is it going to help? AI is going to help because it's going to, once it becomes useful, once we figure out how to make these things operate efficiently, which is really the thing that we need to do right now, which there's a company called Grok that's making, I believe they're called LPUs, not GPUs, LPUs. And I don't know what the L stands for, but obviously processing unit is the PU part. And they're way cheaper, way more efficient, and you can run AI on them way better. And if we'll see where they kind of progress, but if they're right and their company does what they say they are hoping they'll be able to do, then that will be a really big step in making AI efficient enough to actually use. And once we can use it, it will be able to do stuff like run really menial labor.
Okay.
You'll be able to drive a robot down the middle of
your field and water all of your plants, and it'll just do that. And it'll cost $20 a month to subscribe to an AI that can like very efficiently do all the like go through and like run a machine over your field and laser burn all the weeds. So you don't have to spray pesticides over it. You can just go over it and use a laser to burn all the weeds. Really,
I don't want that.
You don't want that?
No, I don't want that.
I totally understand. But it would, for people, it will make it, the point that I would want to make, that
But it'll put me out of business.
it won't put you out of business. It'll make it possible for you to run your own farm on a smaller scale at a cheaper rate. So it'll make it possible for you to compete with bigger guys because you won't have to pay the labor costs that they would otherwise have to pay.
I mean, if I don't use it. I mean, if I don't use
yes,
it.
that's true. Yeah, if you don't use it, you will be outcompeted by small farmers who will be more efficient.
Yes.
Yes. So in that case, yes.
Yeah. But then there will be a market for non-laser.
Sure.
There will be a label.
Something like that. Yeah. They'll be
Non-laser farm.
Non-laser farmed. Yeah.
Hand farmed by a psychopath who still wears a straw hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Still out there burning up, picking weeds by himself.
Exactly. But it also, I mean, one of the things that it will, one of the ways you could think about it is that it will free up you to do all the parts of farming that you want to do and have this thing do all the parts of farming you don't want to do. Which is one way you could think of it. Like as you, I'm sure as this place develops and as you bring it into a fully operational farm, there will be parts of it that you're like, man, I wish I didn't have to do this. And at some point, hopefully in the next 30 years, you'll be able to just go subscribe to this software that'll be able to do it for you. That depends on like how articulate robotics can become. Because right now, all the human robots that exist, like the human-shaped robots that exist, can't pick up their own body weight. So that's obviously an inefficient machine. It can't even move its own weight and stuff. So there's a long way to go in that direction.
Inferior to humans.
Very inferior. They're much slower, not as articulate. They're just in every way they're inferior to humans, and there's really no indication that that's going to change anytime soon. But AI will at least, one of the things that I could say is that it will free up much of the knowledge labor. So like in my world, in the knowledge workers, where we're not physically laboring. I mean, we're writing emails and stuff, obviously, but we're not like people who are coding computers are not physically laboring, but it's what they know that's really important. Much of that labor will be freed up because the AI will be able to do all the menial stuff there.
Sure.
And people, you have this idea in your head that's like, oh, it's going to ruin all these jobs, but that's not the way to think about it. Actually, we've seen in the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution that the way you do not think of it as it's destroying jobs. You think of it as it's freeing labor. It's freeing up labor. So yes, those people will lose their jobs, but the market will allocate that labor somewhere else. Those people will be employed in another area, and it will be more important that they go there than that they do whatever it is they were doing before, and it will occur that way. That's just the way that it is. It's how it happened in the Industrial Revolution. It's what happened in the Agricultural Revolution. Labor got freed up, and that labor was allocated in other places, and it's really hard to see when you're standing on the other end of it. It's really hard to see where those jobs are going to open up and where that labor is going to go.
Right, because they don't exist yet.
They don't exist yet. So it's really, really hard to know how it's going to play out. But that is how it plays out. So that labor will be freed up. That labor will be moved somewhere else in the market. It will make the market more efficient in general. So it has a doubling effect. It's exponential in its efficiency increase in the market when you introduce a technology like that. That's why it's called an exponential technology, because not only does it make the thing that it's replacing people in more efficient, it also moves those people into another area where they are going to increase market efficiency as well. So it's a doubling effect. So AI is a big deal. It will increase market efficiency by a lot. And it will ultimately, in one way or another, it will empower people that don't want to engage in AI. It will make everything around it cheaper. So it will make it easier for you to go about not even using it. That's kind of the beauty of these technologies, is that it makes it easier for people to even avoid using them. So because
you don't have to be an expert to utilize it?
Yeah, you don't have to be an expert to utilize it, but it also, all the stuff that it produces is it's producing cheap. Prices are just a measurement of efficiency. And so if something's more efficient, the things that it's making are going to be cheaper. And so everything, the tools you're going to buy are going to be cheaper. The nails you're going to buy are going to be cheaper. The water that you're going to need is going to be cheaper. The power you're going to need is going to be cheaper. Everything's going to be cheaper. And ultimately, like in 100 years, if AI continues to progress at this rate, it'll drive the price of almost everything to zero, because it just will automatically produce everything. And so the only thing that people will be paying for is stuff that's made by hand. That's the only thing that they'll have to pay for. And that's what they'll want, because they can get everything else for free. It doesn't matter. And it'll make people who are making things by hand, it'll make anything you need to subsidize the stuff you can't create by yourself on your farm. It'll make it, you'll just go take it. You don't have to, you pay pennies for it. And the tools you'll be buying tools at the cost of production, barely above the cost of production. So your chainsaw that you would require to help clear a forest into a field, the tools you would need to do that will be pennies on the dollars compared to what they are today. And getting them repaired will be pennies on the dollars compared to what they are today.
Because that would also be automated?
That would be automated, or yeah. So it enables, a technology like this enables you to operate removed from it, even in a cheap way. You don't even have to deploy AI on your fields to benefit from it. You can still stay removed if you want to engage in the labor of your hands and to feel the earth on your fingers and know that you produce this stuff. You can do it. You'll just be able to do it cheaper. And so that's one of the things that's great about a technology like AI. So AI is here, and that's good. It's coming. There are obviously,
it's here and it's coming.
It's here and it's coming. It's here and more of it's coming. The last thing there's two other things. One of them is room temperature superconductors.
Okay.
That, I think that's still kind of far. These last two things I'll just touch on because we're not even sure that these are actually possible, but it looks like we're making some pretty big leaps in that direction of proving that you can do them. So room temperature superconductor. A superconductor is just a metal that allows energy to pass through it at 100% efficiency.
Really, without losing any to heat resistance?
Right, because you cool it off so much that at a certain point of its temperature, like it gets to a certain temperature that the protons in the metal, instead of repelling, they attract each other, and so they create a completely efficient channel to move electricity through. So superconductors at room temperature is obviously would be an incredible feat. Yeah. You'd be able to, you'd be able to teleport energy incredibly efficiently through miles and miles of space. It's the only thing that'd be better is being able to just send energy through the air for free. Which, depending on whether or not you believe the Earth is flat, you may or may not believe that we at one point were able to do that. But so superconductors, room temperature superconductors, we don't know that for sure that they're possible yet, but if it is possible, and it looks like it might be, if that is possible, and those do arise in the next century, the next 100 years, then that will be another thing that's completely game changing. And then the final thing, and this is the holy grail of all technology. And again, that we don't know that this one is possible, but it is quantum computers. So it is computers that are built in so tiny that they are built in quantum space. And because the laws of physics are different down there, you can do computing way crazier, way faster, way more powerful. The problem is that quantum computers require, so bits are the fundamental piece of information that computers use to do their computations. It's like a bit is a 1, another bit is a 0, right? Binary, that kind of stuff. So,
like people.
Yes, like people. Yeah, very much like people. So quantum computers are using qubits. Now, we've only ever made like 6 of them, 6 qubits, and we've only ever been able to keep them existing for like a few seconds at a time.
Okay.
So we don't.
What is a qubit?
A qubit is a bit, but it's so small, it's like smaller than the particles that make up an atom.
Okay.
And you use it to do computations at a quantum level. And because at a quantum level, the physics are different. Now, I cannot explain it any deeper than that. That's my level of understanding. We are hitting my wall on my level of understanding. But and many like you can watch a ton of like you can go do do the research. Everybody in the space will tell you, we don't know. We don't understand it. Like, we're not really sure yet.
So it is with so many of these technologies.
Yeah. So
we don't know why they do the things they do. We just, I think I read about some research where they didn't really have a theory as to which way would work. They just try it both ways.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that one worked and that one didn't. They just keep trying it until they find a way to work.
Yeah, and then they backwards engineer it to figure out how it's working.
Well, I don't know if even that, they just use it then.
Well, that's a lot of like how we figure out like like engineering stuff. I think is done that way a lot. Like you just kind of guess and guess and guess until one thing works, and then we work it backwards to figure out what's actually happening that causes it to work. I think that's how a lot of that's done. But I don't know. But yes, so it's kind of the same thing. Yes, is that they're just shooting in the dark at this point. They think it's possible because we can make qubits. We've never made them last for long enough to actually make one of these computers. So they're just kind of shooting in the dark. They're hoping for it. We don't know that it's possible. But if it does become possible, we will be able to make an artificial general intelligence. Well, actually, that's not true because it's a different kind of computer. So I actually don't even know, because they wouldn't be used like a quantum computer wouldn't really be doing vector math. So I guess I don't know. We're outside. I just said something I don't fully understand, so scratch that. But quantum computers are a big deal. We'd be able to do a lot of processing really, really quickly and very cheaply, and it would be a big. It's like the mother of all technology. Aside from, I forgot about this, which is another one we are not sure it's possible. Fusion energy. So creating a sun, a tiny little sun.
Like Doc Ock did in Spider-Man 2?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, creating
So we know it's possible, but he wasn't able to stabilize it.
Right, Doc Ock did it, so we know it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Clearly.
He did it twice.
Yeah. He did it 2 times. Yeah.
He replicated his experiment.
If we can build a fusion generator, that is if we can build a fusion generator and then get room temperature semiconductors, that's we are what is it? What's the science fiction term? Cronkite level 1 civilization or whatever. It's not Cronkite. That's
got me.
News reporter. But there's anyways, that's a big
Walter
one.
Cronkite.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite.
Conductors or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. If we can build a fusion generator and have room temperature semiconductors, we're talking about ring world type teleporting people across planets with zero remittance time type technology at that point. Like it's just that would explode. It'd be crazy. But
Boy, this turned into a sci-fi show real quick.
I love sci-fi. I mean, that's what I write. That's the fiction. All the fiction I write is sci-fi.
Oh, I didn't know you wrote fiction.
Oh yeah, I guess I've never really explained that fully, huh? No, yeah, that's kind of the thing.
You haven't read Heinlein?
Heinlein?
Yeah, Robert Heinlein.
Robert Heinlein? No, I don't know. The name isn't familiar. What is it? Oh, you told me about this guy.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
sci-fi writer.
Yeah. No, I haven't read. I'm
Before you leave, let me grab a book. I
should
lend you one.
Yeah, please do. So yeah, fusion energy. It's another one that we're not 100% sure we can do because you have to have, I think it's called heavy helium or something like that, or like ultra helium, something like that. You have to have some element that's like on the moon. It's not present here. And so you can't, a lot of the theories I think around fusion energy, we can't test out until we can get a mining operation on the moon, which I think you would kind of need fusion power to do efficiently. So it's like a catch-22 type situation at this point. So
somebody would have to sink a lot of money into it.
Yeah, a lot of money. And so,
We'd have to bankrupt the U.S. to do it.
yeah, that would be like a civilization unifying kind of mission, I think, to get that done. So I don't know if
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. I don't know. I don't know if fusion energy is on the horizon. I don't know that semiconductors are on the horizon, and I don't know that quantum computing is on the horizon. But if we get any one of those technologies, that's a big deal. But AI and Bitcoin are here. Those are technologies that are totally working. Now, the last thing I'll say, and then I'll call it for my rant, is that at least I'll use AI as the example. So there are obvious, tremendous risks in disruption, is what it's called in the tech world, in disrupting the market like that. Obviously, not everyone who has their job destroyed by AI is going to find a new job, obviously. So I would not advocate for recklessly diving into this stuff, but it will be implemented. Stopping even the fundaments of nature aim at increased efficiency. Rivers flow the way rivers flow because of water looking for the path of least resistance to whatever it is, like the equator or whatever. So trying to stop the advancement and progress of technological increase and the increase in efficiency is like taking a bucket and wading into the Mississippi and being like, I'm going to stop this. The best thing you can do, and I think the thing we ought to do, is come together as a culture, because you have to, in order to do this, you have to do this. You have to come together as a large group of people, but come together as a large group of people and build a dam. You know what I mean? So you can
utilize it. Okay.
You control the flow of
Gotcha.
the river. You ought not just let this thing go just haphazardly as it sees fit.
You need to harness it.
You need to harness it
Prudently.
very prudently. You just have to be very, very careful with this stuff, because it is.
It can get away from you.
Yes, there is this idea of it's called creative destruction, and it's this idea that you can. With chaos comes new forms, but at the same time, chaos is chaos, and it is incredibly threatening to many, many people, and so you have to just be incredibly diligent. That being said, I will say this on the example of AI, and I want to assuage some of people's fears. I don't think AGI is possible. There's a very large school of thought that this idea that we're going to create a sentient computer, it's not possible. Silicon runs too hot. It's just not physically possible to make this thing a reality. And there's a guy, a quantum physicist, who's working on a math equation that would prove the existence of God right now. Big deal in the space. He's like the quantum physics guy. He doesn't think that
he is a believer, or
I don't think he's a Christian, but he has certainly said, I was an atheist until me and my team started on this, and they're about to release the paper on quantum physics. And,
okay.
And he's like, listen, I know that once you guys get a hold of this, peer review all this stuff, they're gonna try to disprove what we're saying in this paper. Good luck. Like, he's very serious. Like,
interesting.
He's at least a like, he's gone on several podcasts and been like, look, there's a thing out there and it's observing all of this, and that's what's holding all of this together. And I don't know what you would call that thing.
Is this what you referenced episode or two back about observable, when things are being observed, they behave differently?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So he said, whatever. Anyways, his point that he's made is that consciousness is divine. It is not. There is an element of consciousness that cannot be captured by material existence, and so we cannot replicate consciousness.
It has not a body like men.
Right, it has not a body like men, so you can't create a conscious mind. That is a foolhardy idea and a power God has reserved for Himself.
Yeah.
So there will not be a conscious AI. It's not coming. So you don't have to worry about being threatened by that. It isn't coming. The danger with AI
is that we turn one of these things on.
It kills a bunch of people.
Yeah, and in its idea of creating the most efficient Walmart or whatever,
iRobot happens.
Yeah, it decides
Terminator.
But though in those movies, it's a conscious creature making a decision.
They say it is.
That's true. I guess that's a good point. Yeah, we don't have any.
They
evidence.
would say in the movie the theory is that it is, but really it's just a computer making logical.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're even saying it's sentient.
I think
iRobot is really fascinating in talking about the differences between human beings and super intelligent computers.
Yeah.
Being that, Will Smith's character is arguing with the robot, Sonny, and saying, a robot can't, create a work of art. You can't write a symphony. And then Sonny goes, can you?
Yeah.
And he's like, well.
Yeah.
He's like, well, and obviously the answer would be like, no, but the human beings have capability of doing it.
As a race, the human beings.
As a race, they can. That's not me in particular. I'm not gifted that way, or I haven't directed my abilities that way. But no robot can possibly create a symphony because it is art and it is creative, free thought.
Yeah. Well, there's meaning behind it.
There's meaning behind it.
Robots can right now create a symphony.
Yes.
It's just meaningless.
But but again, it would be based off of all other symphonies.
Right, exactly.
And to a point, I mean, if you really want to get into it, people would come back and say, well, all creatives are
building on the shoulders of those who came before them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We came from beating rocks and sticks together to make rhythm, and it developed instruments and technologies that allowed us to make new sounds and blend them in different ways. And so it's all an accumulation.
Right. But in order to do that, we are drawing off the paracausal creative energy of God.
And the robot would never have thought to make rhythm in the first place.
Right. Exactly. That's what. Yeah,
if you had the sentient not the sentient technology, but the super high tech AI, it would never go, for my own pleasure, I would like to beat these rocks together.
Exactly.
And then dance.
Right. It would have to be prompted to do something like that by a human.
Right.
Right.
It would not go, there's pleasure in dancing and there's pleasure in music because it doesn't have a soul.
Right, exactly. And so God...
And we take pleasure in beauty because God is beauty. And God has put that into man.
Right. And so God has kind of... The way you can think about it is that like God created... So there's a thing called a bootloader, which is kind of like a... what's the part of an engine that actually fires the bigger engine?
Are you talking about the spark plug or the...
like when you have a really large complex engine, you have to have a smaller engine that fires that engine off.
Oh, like a Kickstarter or something?
Yeah, something like that. So in computing, there's this thing called a bootloader, and it's a smaller computer that turns the other computer on.
Oh, okay. Yes, for the initial power startup?
Right.
Capacitors.
Okay.
A capacitor, at least, it stores electricity. In air conditioning, they use this.
Okay.
So there's little cylindrical or oval devices that store power, and they help kickstart the motor of like the fan that turns on, or the compressor, and they both have different sizes of capacitors that need to help get it going because it uses more power on startup than it does running.
Right. Okay.
The running load is far less than the starting load.
Yeah, so the way you could think of it is that God is the only one who can make a capacitor.
I like that.
Like that's it. So
he made the capacitor, which is human beings.
Yeah.
Exactly. And therefore human beings could therefore run and make other capacitors. Well, not other capacitors. They can run and do their program.
Right. The bigger engine, which is the AI, but human beings still are the you can't turn the engine on without the
capacitor.
Right.
Yeah.
So God's the only one that can make that part of consciousness is reserved only for God's ability to create.
Preach.
Yes. So AGI not coming, I don't think.
I would agree. I think it's spiritually impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
Physically and mathematically impossible because of the laws that are put into place.
Yeah, and I think there is a chance that one of these effective altruist or effective accelerationist retards attaches a demon to one of these things. I think that's possible. But even then, that thing would get smoten almost instantly, I'm sure.
Well, the demons can't act without
the permission of God.
Yeah, so I mean, we're just reading through Job now. So
okay.
Everything that Satan did to Job to trial him,
certainly.
He had to ask permission first.
Right, certainly.
So It was as they were trials for Job with God's permission.
Yeah.
Satan carried out the evil act of doing those things to Job and his family, but it wasn't without God's oversight.
Yeah.
God said, you may do this to test my servant.
Right.
Not as a cruel, hey, I'd like to see how Job
watch
does
this.
writhing around. I'd like to see my creatures writhe.
Yeah. I want to build his will. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
So,
exactly. It's for a purpose.
yeah. And so then I'll use another example here real quick. And then I've said this twice now, but, this is also fascinating to me. It's easy for me to talk about. The other example I'll use, and then I'll make my final point, which is we've talked about this before, which is the escape velocity of human aging.
Oh, yeah.
This is another thing that the effective accelerationist guys are all about.
Which I don't think is possible.
Not possible. Certainly not possible. Somewhere the Lord will stop that. Will have.
There will be a finite end to
there'll be
your life.
Yeah.
You'll just be called home.
Yeah.
Even if there's nothing medically or nothing we can
one of the
detect
things
that's wrong with that body,
Yeah.
that person will just die.
Yeah. One of the things that I think might happen if they do, because it does look like they are going to achieve something that looks like escape velocity of human aging. I think that they will probably do something like that, and they'll be able to keep your body physically alive infinitely.
Creepy.
Yeah. But
That's not even that hard to imagine, just with enough machines pumping blood and everything else.
Surely, yeah.
Filtering,
Yeah.
replacing all the organs and
Yeah.
whatnot.
But your spirit, somehow your soul will age out. And your soul will leave your body at some point, I think. And so you're going to get this like there's this guy, Brian.
To think that you can outplay God.
I know. It's so crazy. I mean, it's the arrogance.
That just it sends chills into my heart even thinking about the idea that you would try to build a skyscraper to God and be like, I am as high as God now.
Yeah. The horror.
Look at that. We beat out aging.
Oh, yeah. Just imagine.
We beat out death.
Imagine
we beat death. You imagine, like, you're claiming, those people are claiming to have done what only Jesus could do by defeating death.
Yeah.
It's just, it puts a shaking terror into my
think
chest.
Think about the creature
about
it's going to create. Because they're going to achieve something. They're going to achieve something.
Some Frankenstein
something like that. Yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to, but the problem is that it's going to happen to one person, and everyone's going to go, "Whoa, what the hell is that thing? I don't want that."
Kill it.
Yeah, kill it. So somebody is going to be condemned to some sort of like half-life forever. So there's probably a human being.
Body.
Yeah.
Somebody won't be.
Yeah, that's true. There is a human being, I believe right now, there's at least one human being walking around who is going to have some sort of incredibly messed up Frankenstein existence.
Some inmate.
Some inmate, something like. I don't think it's going to be an inmate. I think it's going to be one of these guys.
One of the
they do the experiment.
Billionaires?
Yeah, they experiment on themselves. There's one guy. His name Brian, whatever. I don't. He looks like a skinwalker. He's like a vampire. But this guy looks insane, and he spends like $2 million a year trying to reverse his own aging.
Yeah,
and he has this new religion called the Zeroth religion or whatever.
Really,
the first commandment is "Thou shalt not die." Crazy.
Wow.
Wild stuff. These are the people we have to be worried about.
That's demonic.
Yeah. That guy's going to
pray for him.
Yeah, dude, he's going to condemn himself to something insane. So, but at the end of the day, I do think that they will not achieve rendering people immortal. That's just not going to happen. And so the point that I want to make ultimately is that there is going to be, and you can kind of see them everywhere. We cannot zoom in more than the quantum level. We can't look you can't go any smaller than that in how close you're looking. It obviously gets smaller infinitely, but there's a barrier. There's like a physical barrier that you cannot get past to look any closer.
That's what so like no matter how many microscopes you put on it,
you can't go any past
it. It just gets blurry.
Yeah, exactly. and you cannot. One of the
first we see in a mirror as in dimly, but then we will know.
Oh, what is that from? Is that
the Bible?
Oh, okay. Biologically, one of the reasons why we know evolution never occurred is because we cannot manipulate the genetic code past a certain degree or it just falls apart. So I think everywhere, in technology, everywhere, we're going to start running into these barriers that God's built into play, like a map on Halo. You just can't go past it.
Bumping into it.
Yeah, you're just bumping into it.
I really, really want to go over this hill.
Right. You just can't.
Sorry.
You can't.
God said no.
I just said no. And I'm not going to give you any explanation. I don't owe you an explanation. You just can't do it.
You'll find out later.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And so I think...
if it is for you to know.
If it is for you to know. And so I think we're just going to run into those barriers everywhere. And I really sincerely think that there will come a point where technological progress will just stop. We just can't keep going past any further. And I think that will be one of the big signs that it's time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You think that's kind of when the world will actually end?
That's when we're getting ready to wrap it up. Yeah. Is that when we start hitting all these barriers? Like we've really only hit one. I guess we've hit two in biology, one in quantum physics and one in biology. But I think we're going to run into dozens of them, hundreds of them in every field. We're going to run into these barriers. We just can't get things smaller. We can't get them any more efficient. We can't get this. We can't get that. And
there'll be no new discoveries.
Right. We'll just run out of stuff to discover. And so, maybe it's 10,000 years from now. Maybe it's 100. I don't know. But I think that
Isn't that fascinating to think about, that 2,000 years after Christ, now we might only be at kind of the first 10th of human history?
Yeah.
What if in the end, Jesus actually came really, really, really early on in the history of the world?
Right. Right. Certainly.
Whereas now, like we're a lot closer to Christ was than Abraham was. I shouldn't say Abraham, than like Noah.
Right. Certainly. Yeah.
I'm going to get my timelines really messed up, show how ignorant I am of the timelines, but a lot closer than Adam, we'll put it that way.
Yeah. 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 So I think being cautious about technology, I think, is a good idea, but I also think God has put guardrails into everything so that we're not gonna.
Isn't that comforting?
It is comforting. I think so. Yeah.
To know that we can't just
blow ourselves up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not entirely.
So. Yeah, not entirely. We can maybe
there'll be some labs that blow up.
Yeah, maybe huge swaths of the earth will be uninhabitable for 200 or 300 years, but I think we'll be fine ultimately.
We will be fine ultimately.
Yeah, we will be fine ultimately.
Those who put their faith in Christ, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, it is an arc. It is an arc. Yeah, so that's it. That's my spiel. That's why I think the immediate future is quite bright. I think we are going to have things like more efficient farming, more efficient cities. I think we're going to have this like solar punk. If I could go inside of Jason's head and pull out like the ideal version of a city, I think that's what cities will look like. Have these like large, sort of beautiful glass structures with little tiny apartment-sized homesteads, vines hanging out of all of them, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, beautiful plants growing up the side of every building.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the
still
future.
Allowing all the natural light in.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's kind of what we're headed towards. I think you're going to see like 85-year-old people doing like wind sprints and stuff. Like just like things are going to look weird or whatever, but they're going to be. I think ultimately they're going to be better than they are now. There's going to be weird, glaring issues that we can't foresee now that they couldn't have foreseen when they first figured out you could process food to make it not ever spoil. Because there were guys sitting around having this exact conversation being like, dude, if you add this chemical to the meat, it just won't go bad after you cook it. And everyone was like, that's awesome. That's great. We should do that for every slice of meat ever invented, ever made from here on out. And then, 80 years later, people are like getting cancer from that chemical, And so it's just, there's going to be those problems.
I think that's maybe you think that'll go away?
No. I think that'll be persistent into the future.
Oh, okay.
I think AI it's going to be overall maybe like 5% better than it is bad, but it's going to come with its own. Every time we have these, it rains every Saturday. This is crazy. But I think overall it's going to be good, but it's going to come with a whole host of new issues. And it'll solve some of the ones that we are experiencing now and create new ones for the future. And in 100 years, there's going to be young guys sitting around having the exact conversation about how stupid their predecessors were for not realizing that boiling milk makes it not nutritious. Something like that. Anyways, that's my shtick. I'm all done.
I like it. That's hopeful.
Good. Anything you want to say? Any closing words?
So I'd say that even if it's not, maybe for people who are worried about the future of America specifically, why?
Sure.
I started to worry about it at some point in the past, being like, what if, I guess, you grow up hearing about America and how we triumphed over all these things, but in the end, does it really matter which nation is doing well if the gospel's being spread and if we're being faithful? If we end up, if everything Ethan said is wrong and China ends up taking over somehow, we were wrong about everything, It doesn't matter
Yeah.
in the long run. Remember, the our game is eternal. It's not whether or not our country wins in the end or is on top or is the most economically influential doesn't ultimately matter if we didn't use the resources that we had for God's glory.
Yeah.
So that's all that really truly matters. So that's where your hope should be, where it should really be. And so I would say even if we were facing down a terrible economic downturn or really the end of the United States as we know it, there's still there's so many opportunities to use whatever situation you're in for God's glory, in whatever job you're in, and however big your family is or however small they are, that that doesn't matter. It matters what you do with the time and place, because you are a part of God's plan. God has a plan, and it doesn't necessarily involve the United States for the rest of human history.
Certainly. Yeah.
Don't worry about it so much.
Yeah, don't worry about it so much. At all, yeah, certainly. And the furtherance of Christendom is our goal, not the propagation of Christendom is our goal, not the propagation of the American empire.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a very fantastic point. I think that's a great point to end on. So, guys, we'll leave you here. It's starting to rain pretty hard, which always picks up on the mics. And it's actually, I was actually listening. I thought it might be relaxing. It's quite annoying. So, we'll call it here. Go to church, have a big family, raise those kids right, pray often, teach them the commandments, do good work, and don't get hopeless, man. God has a plan. It is ultimately good. We may be so small we can't see what it is now, but you are going to play a part in it, whether you like it or not. Actually, so
play the right part.
Yeah, play the right part and play it willingly. You can either struggle helplessly against your fate, or you can accept it and find peace. Those are your two options, and that's that really. So, guys, we love you. We'll be praying for you. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.